Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So we're batch recording today, so we're keeping the jolly jumper on. So in today's video, I'm talking about some ways in which you can save money if you're on a low budget and you love to sew. Let's get straight into it. So these are in no particular order, but the first one is to slow down your sewing to reduce your costs. So as new sewers, I've talked about this, we are really keen to sew as fast as we can. We see it as like a big queue if we do a top in an hour or a dress in a couple of hours. But actually, if we slow down and take our time, we're going to make less garments and less mistakes. So therefore, we're going to spend less money on the actual process of sewing. So the next tip is to avoid spending money on gadgets, tools, fabric, etc. that you don't need to buy. If you work on a project by project basis, you are going to end up spending a lot less money than if you start buying all the tools, all the notions, all the fabric, because you've fallen in love and you've got that dopamine hit. That is the fastest way to spend money that you don't have. Ask me how I know. So the next tip is that when you are buying supplies, that you choose the best quality that you can afford. When I started to sew, I would buy all the cheap stuff, the cheaper, the better. But what happened is the stuff needed replacing fairly often, and I ended up spending more money. It was a false economy. If you can buy quality the first time, that quality item is going to last you a lot longer and you are going to spend less money. So the next tip that's going to save you a ton of money is to use the same pattern over and over again, or learn to draft your own patterns. So when we start to sew, we can be really keen to buy this pattern and that pattern. We see it on a model, it looks absolutely fantastic. We want to feel fantastic, so we convince ourselves we must have that pattern. But at £20 a pop, that can get really, really expensive. Whereas if we're buying a few really basic patterns that we can learn to adapt, we are going to save a lot of money. And as I said, if you learn to draft your own, you're going to save even more because it costs nothing to draft your own patterns. If you're liking these tips so far, do stay right to the end because the last one is my favourite one. Leave a comment down below and subscribe for more videos like this. Let's get on to the next money saving tip. Shock horror, but this one is to shop your own stash and use what you already own first before you buy anything else. It can seem like a really obvious thing that if we use what we've got, money we've already spent, then we're not going to be spending more. If you're new to sewing, I'm here to tell you that that's not how we work as sewists. We want the new fabric. We get bored with the stuff that we've already got. But actually, if we appreciate what we've got and use it because we bought it for a reason, then you're going to save a ton of money. So the next tip is to avoid social media and the need for the latest and the greatest, the FOMO, the fear of missing out. If you avoid it, then you don't go down that rabbit hole, see things that you want and spend money that you don't have. I have issues. I've done this for years and years. And even when I know better, I still go on social media and I end up spending money. This happened to me the other day, not in sewing, but I ended up buying some posters for my walls that I wasn't even thinking about buying until I'd gone down a rabbit hole and saw them and I thought, oh, that'd be good for my room makeover. Just avoid social media as much as you can and then you will buy less. So the next tip is to take care of your sewing machine and your supplies so you don't need to replace them. In terms of your sewing machine, if you have it serviced once a year or once every 2 years, then it's going to last you a lot longer. If you have any problems, take it in. If you hear funny sounds, stop sewing on your machine because you might well break something that's going to be costly to replace. You're not going to like this next one, but it is going to save you money if you learn to adapt your garments that you already have. So often we open our wardrobe, we're like, I can't wear that dress because the shoulders are sloping off me. I can't wear those trousers because they've got a hole in them. If we learn to adapt those things that don't fit us perfectly or are not perfect in their current form, we're going to actually spend less money buying fabric and making garments that we don't actually need. Believe me, adaptations are a lot quicker than making a whole garment. You might get further life out of the garments that you already own. So the next thing you can do is to attend fabric swaps or set one up on your own if you don't know of any in your area. So we've all got a stash, haven't we? Me, not so much now because I de-stashed, but a lot of us do have a stash, and we have lots of fabrics that would just not to our liking anymore, but they are perfectly good fabrics. If you can arrange a fabric swap with other sewers, then you can give away that fabric and take in fabric that you do love, and it's going to be at no extra cost to yourself. So the next tip is to use thrifted or repurposed fabrics instead of buying brand new fabric. So whether that is using your old bed sheets and your duvet covers, maybe it's a tablecloth that you've got, or maybe you've gone to the local thrift store and picked up some fabric for dirt cheap, it's going to be a lot more cost effective than buying luxury fabric that costs 10, 20, 30 pounds a metre, especially if you need like 3 metres like I do. So the next tip for you is to take advantage of the free sewing patterns that are online. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds at this point. I've done about 7, 8, 9 videos. I don't know how many videos on free patterns. I did one a few weeks ago that you may not have seen yet. We'll link it down below. But to be honest with you, there's so many free patterns now, there's not really any need to buy a pattern anymore. Shock horror, I know. And that's going to save you £20 a pop. So the next tip I have for you is to swap your sewing skills with other people. Maybe not just your sewing skills. So if there's someone in your family or friends that are really good at sewing, maybe you could ask them to teach you in exchange for you doing something for them. It's going to save you money on getting professional classes. It's going to upskill you a lot quicker than just watching YouTube videos. You're going to have that connection with someone that's going to be really positive, and you'll help them by utilising the skills that you have, maybe in sewing, but maybe in other areas as well. Another thing that's really going to save you some money is to make your own bias binding tape instead of purchasing it. When I was first sewing, I would always purchase my bias binding tape. Number one, it's a cost that we don't need to make. Number two, the fabric of the bought bias binding never ever matches the fabric of the garment you're making. And number three, if you buy cheap bias binding tape, sometimes it's not actually cut on the bias, and that's going to cause all sorts of problems when you're using it in your garment. If you make your own, you can make it out of the exact same fabric, so it's going to match to look at. It's also going to match in weight. You know it's cut on the bias, so you're not going to have any problems when you're sewing, and you're going to save yourself some money as well. The next tip that's going to save you some money is to borrow the speciality tools that you need rather than buying them. Sometimes we go out and we buy tools and we only actually end up using it on one project or maybe 2 projects if we use it at all. But if there's someone close to you who already sews and they have that tool, maybe you could ask to borrow it. And you could return that favour as well if you've got other tools that they would like to borrow. That's going to save money. I know photographers do this often. They will buy the same model of camera as their friends so that they can borrow lenses and things like that, and it saves them a lot of money. I don't see why this can't apply to sewing as well. So the next tip I have for you is to use a fabric calculator to work out how much fabric you actually need. For example, when I'm purchasing fabric, I am prone to not looking all that up, but just going, oh, I'm making a dress, I need 3 meters, or I'm making a top, I need 2 meters. In actual fact, that might not be how much I need at all. Number one, it's a little bit kamikaze to buy a stretch of fabric without actually knowing how much you need, because what if you haven't got enough? But number two, if you're looking it up, working out how much you have, then you can actually save yourself some money. For example, I can make a t-shirt with 1.5 meters, but I was always buying 2 meters. Now, if I buy quality fabric at £8 per half metre, that's a lot of money I'm saving by not buying that last half a metre. So that's all the money saving tips I have for you. A nice quick video this time. Do leave me a comment down below. Let me know your favourite money saving tips. I'm sure you've got some that I haven't mentioned. If you want more sewing tips, check out this video where I talked about secret sewing tips that you probably don't know. So I will catch you in the next one. Bye for now.